Tonight on Gearcox, the cockerel drives around our track, my colleague crashes into a wall, and I decapitate some cones. Welcome to Gearcox with another ambitious special. This time we attempt to improve the primitive British police force. This is why we have set up the Gearcox Police Squad, as shown by the upcoming cinematic. So I'm Sergeant Ben Oswell, Detective Lieutenant Police Squad. Gearcox Police Squad, bringing you unrestricted access to Britain's most formidable coppers in some of the most action-packed footage ever captured with British police. Follow us as we hunt down and lock up young whippersnappers in one of the UK's most yobbo-infested regions. So when the going gets rough, the police squad gets going. Our first step to improving the police was to go out and buy a car that would be suitable for the police squad. This means it had to be cheap, so the cars could be used as a ram without costing too much to repair. My deluded colleague thought it would be a good idea to make a deal with Mr. Big on the back streets of California and risk having his organs disemboweled for McDonald's meat to buy this wobbly tank, a Ford Falcon, only costing him $1,000. The only place it would look acceptable is in a western wonderland. On the other hand, I had bought this, a mid-engined Italian beauty. The only problem with it was that there wasn't any rear seats to put any potential miscreants in, and I wouldn't like the working class sitting directly next to me, so hopefully the people of Sheffield don't mind being put inside a boot. My second colleague bought this, a Volvo 850. It's sturdy, plenty of room for a family of Tesco shoppers, i.e. criminals, but if it was me buying this car from Auto Trader, from whatever angle I look at it, it just makes me want to become a model boat enthusiast. As soon as we made our cars look more policey, we were told to meet up at the Gearcox test track, where we would find ourselves in the presence of another challenge. The challenge said, the police car has to be fast. To see how quick your cars are, the cockerel will drive one time lap in the standard British police issue Vauxhall Astra Diesel. All you have to do is beat his time in your cars. Bonus points will be awarded for flamboyant driving style, which will look good on a police kill action programme. So on with the time lap. Some say he drank all of the water supply delivered to a deprived African village to help his long-term dehydration sickness, and that in his free time he sunbathes off David Dickinson's skin. All we know is, he's called the cockerel. As soon as the cockerel finished his lap, in a rather quick time of 1 minute and 49 seconds, my colleague arrived in his horse on wheels. Unlike the animals you see on the Yorkshire Vet, he was driving like a man's hand was up his backside. With our local American forgetting that we were trying to improve British police and not the kind of videos Americans in white socks dance to on a Strictly Come Square dancing sports day marathon, he was choosing flamboyance over actually trying to beat the cockerel. After murdering only several members of the camera crew, my colleague banked a time lap of 1 minute and 56 seconds, 7 seconds slower than the cockerel. After only just joining the police squad, I was straight into action. Faster than you could say spread 'em, I was inside the cold grey life of a police officer. I'm now surrounded by pimps, rapists, and murderers. It was like being on the stand of a Los Angeles Raiders game. It was going to take all my police experience just to stay alive. But like a blind man at an orgy, I'd have to feel my way through. Like that time my uncle told me to raid the Capitol building. This should be a walk in the park. Maybe in the future, whilst watching police kill action down under, I will be watching things like this. A Volvo 850 skillfully mastering the roads of Britain. After my overachieving colleague completed an unflamboyant but quick lap time of 1 minute and 46 seconds, I arrived in my Fiat, but because my middle name is Flamboyant, the best way I could start is by starting with a J-turn. But after briefly applying some Vaseline to the camera, we'll just go with the intention that I'm a brilliant driver and didn't mess up. But then, I was back on my way. Rolling my car on this grass shares similar embarrassment to the time when I tried to catch Santa Claus coming down the chimney. But when I did catch something, it was actually my uncle sneaking back from the gentleman's club. But like a cow having intercourse, this was going to be a wobble to the finishing line. As soon as I limped across the finishing line, with a lap time of 2 minutes and 5 seconds, the challenge ended. And the Volvo was the only one that actually beat the Vauxhall's time. With the first challenge out of the way, we decided to return to this city. Then, the actual police showed up and showed us how to do an actual T-pack stopping manoeuvre, and it wasn't long before our next challenge appeared too. It said, "You will now demonstrate to the police how your chip cars can be used to stop the local yobs without using £125,000 worth of Vauxhall and the RAF and 16 health and safety forms." We were then told to meet up at the Gearcox International Anti-Yobbo Rescue Service Centre, where we were then told to wait for a crime. As this is the north, it wasn't long we had to wait for. We had reports of an youth stealing from Waitrose because he's scum and he can't afford it, and would take immediate response to the said yobbo. So the International Anti-Yobbo Rescue Service had been summoned, so the Gearcox Police Squad was go. Scared of being given an anal cavity search for his concealed cocaine, the yobbo was keeping his fingers and legs crossed, just like the young people did when Jimmy Savile was in the room. Little did this chavvy slob realise that it was actually being tailed by the Gearcox police squad drone of intrusiveness, for once giving the BBC some good content. However, like being the fat kid at sports day, I was falling behind from the rest of them. But when I did eventually catch up, we decided to show the police how we perform a TPAC, and that's by shoving the nong into a tree. Somehow surviving a 60-mile-an-hour impact into Bear Grylls' house, this youth then showed off the type of skills you only get from the type of job when not trying hard at school: mowing grass. With the yobbo here in his natural habitat, it was hard for us to actually get any hits on him. Like a little checkout area, it became quite tight between me and the yobbo. Like a tame cat turned savage, my colleague wasn't having any of it, and hit after rolling hit, the yob started slowing down. Like defecating on a caravan toilet, I felt like I was sitting on a pile of my own feces with the number of close calls I've had, but I did eventually catch up with the anti-lecturer slob. But before I could unleash my pure strong masculinity against the rodontious prat, he spun right around. As welcome as Bill Gates at the Apple office, this youth was pushed straight into a bird's bakery, and as useful as a chocolate fireguard, the rear picnic table was removed. My colleague, a good cop, needlessly cut down and ambushed by some cowardly hoodlum. However, I took a wrong turning and was causing a traffic jam because I stumbled onto a double roundabout. But because I have the almighty wisdom that can only come from experience, like a guy who went blind because he looked at a solar eclipse without one of those boxes with a pinhole in it, and now goes around the country speaking at several primary schools about the dangers of looking at a solar eclipse without one of those boxes with a pinhole in it, I decided to risk it for the spare biscuit I had lying around in my glove box. Unfortunately, this, like a Tesla project, was taking time, and to make matters worse, a maniacal driver drove straight into me. To teach this whippersnapper, I belted out my siren to make him aware of who he had just crashed into. With one of my colleagues lost, and me sharing insurance info, my colleague was still right on the chav's tail. After using every single Gearcox police squad tactical move in the book, he was struggling to bring the Corsa to a halt. This allowed the chav time to do his daily Halford shop, so after he watched some Poles do a quick fit upgrade to his Corsa, he had a new spoiler, lick of paint, and new stereo for his banging tunes. Just when the witless dishcloth thought we'd given up, we opened up the Gearcox Police Squad toy box and attached a special feature to the drone of intrusiveness, and said, adios. This was no way for a man to die. A parachute not opening. That's a way to die. Getting caught in the gears of a combine. Having your nuts bit off by a caplander. That's the way I'd want to go. But anyway, we dispersed the area and we reflected on our absolutely beautiful success on this challenge. That's if you ignore that throughout this entire special, we completely destroyed a test track, forcefully brought fear and terror to the people of the North, and caused more damage than the expense of the pint of milk the yobbo stole from Waitrose. And in the end, we relied on a drone, which by the way was being flown by a yob, meaning all of our cars were completely pointless. So as it turns out, the Gearcox Police Squad cannot improve the police force, which means we've completely wasted your time.